Right. Welcome to the challenges of balancing academic career and family life. This event is sponsored by the Academy of Marketing Science. I'm Hyunju Shin. I am the new director of online seminars for AMS and an associate professor of marketing at Georgia Southern University in US. I'm your host and the moderator for today's panel. I'll be monitoring the Q&A box for questions that you have for our panel today. Questions will be answered after all the panelists are finished. We'll record this event and make recording available by posting it on our website. The topic of today's webinar is about challenges we come across as academic in balancing life and family, and how to overcome these challenges in life while pursuing academic careers. The topic is very personal to me as I'm a mother of 4-year-old and have experienced pregnancy and a burden of taking care of a young child while both my husband and I work full-time. I remember the day I spoke to my department chair about my pregnancy, and I was very intimidated because I was due in February, which is in the middle of the semester in US. It was my second year only at Georgia Southern, and I hadn't yet received my tenure. To me, the biggest gift was that I had a very supportive colleagues and mentors who have already gone through what I experienced. So my very brief advice to female scholars who plan to start their families to find mentors internally who understand the department culture and shamelessly seek their advice. So we have a great mix of panelists with varying life and academic experiences. Without further ado, let's dive in. Each panelist will introduce themselves first and then share their experiences. So our very first panelist is Barry Babin. Oh, I forgot to share my slides. So
show your family.
My families. Yes, my family and I met in Vancouver when we had AMS conference in 2019, and we took the family photo with my in-laws last year when my daughter was 3-year-old, and this is latest photo of my daughter that we gave to her as a gift for her 4th year birthday last month. So that's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah. So, hi. Whenever I do an AMS thing, I feel a little silly introducing myself since I've been so involved with AMS since 1987 when I first became the assistant to the editor of the Journal Academy of Marketing Science as a doctoral student. I'm Barry Babin, and I'm the executive director of the Academy of Marketing Science and co-chair of the Board of Governors. And my family history also goes back to the doctoral program is Lori, who I'm sure all of you regular AMS, Lori very well, gave birth to Amy, who is there to my right in the photo, when we were in the last year of the doctoral program. And then James came along 2 years later, and James is standing there next to Lori. And some of you may remember where this is. If you do, chat in where this picture is. This was during an AMS event. This was at the World Marketing Congress.
Peru?
No.
No.
In Porto. So this was on the excursion out to the Douro Valley, and it was just really, really a great time. And those of you who've been AMS for a long time, you probably not only knew Lori, but you know James and Amy, because back when we did the World Marketing Congress in us, I told them they could come to the World Marketing Congress and come to France with us, but they were going to have to work the conference. So you may have checked in with Amy or James when you checked in at the World Marketing Congress back then. So family's always been involved with what I'm doing. And I don't want to take a lot of time, don't have really formal presentation, but I just want to, oh, and Hanju, press the advance.
Yep.
Because now we have not only Amy and James, but the new member of our family, Lori and I became, I still have a hard time saying this, grandparents in August, and that's Ollie right there. And then Brian is Amy's husband, and Brian is there to the right of Amy at Ollie's christening, which was recent. But I really want to, if I could emphasize any one of the 3 points I want to make, the first one is the most important, and it's about priorities. And I've been speaking now at various events, doctoral consortia for years and years. And sometimes when I sit and listen to the other presenters, I get so depressed. And I go, why would I want to get into this business? And when they're talking about how important the research is, and research is everything, and you've got to have 20 papers under review at any one time. You've got to work your whole life on research. Forget everything else. And I'd say, that's not what I signed up for. I decided to get in academics, and maybe many of you would have the same experience. I was working in retailing at the time, and retailing, you work a lot of hours. And I heard you could get a 3-day teaching schedule. And that's why I signed up to get into the business. and so, but the priorities are just so important. Realize that my biggest contributions are nothing related to what I published. You're looking at them in these photos right here. Those are my biggest contributions. And I'm the same way with my faculty. Like I laughed, Hanju, when you said you were afraid to talk about your department chair about expecting a baby, because I would be delighted. I would be really excited about that when my faculty members come and say they're having a baby. And there are some challenges that come along with that. I mean, Lori and I both were faculty members, which gave us a little bit of flexibility in terms of trading things off. But our children spent almost no time in daycare. That one of us at 3 o'clock was there to pick them up from school almost every day. And sometimes you were in the middle of something at school and you just had to go. And when the kids came running down the stairs from school and running into your arms, trust me, you forget about whatever it was you were dealing with at school. So priorities, your family is the top priority, and it's the top priority in everything. And I wouldn't want anybody to do anything other than that. And just yesterday in my office, I had a student who was kind of a problem student, and he wanted to see me in person. So I went up to the office. We had a visit with him, and he was in trouble with a faculty member that I happen to be married to. But and I gave him some advice about how to respond back to her, and because he felt like he needed to apologize. And I said, what I'm telling you is exactly the same as I would tell James, my son. And so the priorities, I think, also extend to the way you treat your students and the way you treat the other colleagues at work. You're not gonna, I hope when you pass on, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I wish I had one more journal publication. I think you're going to be thinking about other things. And so I've tried to always make my family a priority. And sometimes you fail, but you really want to try to always make them priorities. And in this business, we have flexibility that you're not going to get in almost any other business. The fact that yeah, you can get, in fact, some of my faculty would think a 3-day teaching schedule is onerous. You have to have a 2-day teaching schedule. And now with all the online teaching, we're worried that anybody's ever going to come back to the office. And so there's a flexibility associated with this job that you need to embrace. and try to leverage in this. And so I think that's a big bonus for the academic career. Also want to say something about attitude and the fact that you should want to be liked. I mean, you're never going to get everybody to like you, but you especially want your family to like you. You're going to have to deal with your family. And so try, even if you're stressed out because of trying to balance work and family, and there are the pressures of tenure, and there's always pressure in the professional life, and I still feel it to this day. But try to carry a good attitude into everything you do, and especially when you go and approach your family. One of the reasons, too, is with your colleagues, because most of us are not going to end up working where we've got a big family support structure. We're going to be moving to some place distant to go and work where we don't really know a lot of other people. And you're going to be relying on your colleagues to help you out when you need some help. And I can tell you, it seems like ancient history now, but back in 2001 and September 11th, and I told Lori was still in the Navy Reserves at the time. And the Sunday before that, so that happened on a Tuesday, the Sunday before that, I said, maybe you ought to think about getting out of the reserves, because it's been quite a while since something happened, and I just think something's about to happen. And then 2 days later, we had 9/11. Friday, she was activated. So in the span of a week, then I kind of became a single parent, with 2 school-age kids, teaching a new prep 2, not on the main campus, but on the Gulf Coast campus, which meant I had to drive to get there every day. And I relied on some good friends, the Bushharts, who was a faculty member on my faculty, Stephen Bushhart in management. And when I went to teach that night class and didn't get back till late at night, the kids stayed over at their house. Now, if I had been a jerk to him, that would have never happened. And if I hadn't taken the time to establish a relationship and friendship with him and just worked on my research all the time, that would have never happened. So the priorities, flexibility, and attitude kind of all leads into balance. And so, yeah, I look forward to hear what the rest of you have to say into the chat that comes in so we can respond to questions.
Okay, next presenter is Jana.
All right, well, Barry was my department chair back when I was a doctoral student as a single parent of a 4-year-old. So when he talks about Amy and James, I know Amy especially well because she was one of my main babysitters because of needing, a little bit of help. So my name is Jana Parker. I am the VP of engagement for the Academy of Marketing Science, and I'm an assistant professor at James Madison University. And I've been involved with AMS since I was a doctoral student. All of us who are Barry's former students, laugh that he would take away our doctorates if we don't join AMS. But I say that it's a great organization, and I feel like it's my extended family. Anyways, I do want to talk a little bit about my experience of being both a doctoral student and then moving on to being a faculty member as a single parent. So you see pictures of my daughter at various ages here. And I have these up because it kind of reflects some of the benefits that we have had, as well as some of the challenges, but benefits of being in this life. So one of the great things has been, once again, that flexibility. The picture of her dressed up is Alice in Wonderland. I put that up there because I have been able to, with my schedule, be involved in school activities. That night was a choir night where they did Disney and everybody dressed up, and I was able to be a parent there, setting up and helping with the event because my job has flexibility. I have the picture of Hotel del Coronado because that represents our experiences. She's gone to so many conferences with me over the years, and she loves to talk about the beautiful hotels that she has stayed in and the places that she's gotten to visit. And many people in AMS and other organizations that I have gone to the conferences have met my daughter. She probably wouldn't be happy about that picture, but that's okay. I'm mom. And then we now live 2 hours from Washington, D.C. We've moved around. She's lived in a lot of different states, so she's had a lot of those life experiences. She loved her time in Louisiana. She actually loves alligator, and her favorite way to eat it is deep fried because of living in Louisiana. But now in Virginia, we're going over to DC, and there's a picture of us in front of the White House. So, there's all these different experiences. And of course, she has been very proud of mom getting her doctorate, and she put on, that was when she was about 9 years old, my cap and gown and hood. So this, these pictures to me reflect the benefits that I've had and the experiences of being a parent in academia. And there's so many really great things about this that we have been able to experience. With that being said, with that comes the challenges. And as a parent, and in my time, it's been a single parent the entire time, we have deadlines that we hit. Yes, I am not going to be someone who says, I wish I had had one more publication before I died. However, I do need to get enough publications to make tenure. And so there are those deadlines for the revise and resubmit that you get, or for the special issue and things like that, which can be challenging because you've just got to, work to get it in. And I think that one of the things I've been able to do as a parent with my daughter is, going back to that flexibility, is, saying to her, this weekend, for a couple of weekends, I'm going to be working a lot on the weekends. You can keep yourself entertained here around the house. I have things with her. And then, because of my flexibility, reward her with that. Okay, now we're going to go off and we're going to go do something really fun. We lived in Georgia. We're going to go to Atlanta for a couple of days and do things like that. So, I think that it's really important to look at the benefits and challenges together, because I have that challenge. I accomplished what I needed to do. I got that manuscript in on time. The registrar does not wait for grades. We've got to get final grades in. We have deadlines. We live by deadlines. But then when they're over, because we get that time of flexibility, which is a benefit, we can go spend that family time. We have the deadlines of grades are coming up, but then over the holidays, going back to those benefits, my daughter was never one of the kids in daycare over the Christmas break. I've always, when she was younger, I paid for daycare so that we had that available, but she never had to be a 7:30 to 6 o'clock kid. And at the holidays, mom is working with my 8 to 5 job. We were going off and spending time with the family. That challenge of the job location, my family is on the West Coast and I'm out here on the East Coast, or I was down in the South. So, we missed that, but then once again, the flexibility of an academic job combined with her being in school, we'd go spend 2 weeks at Christmas with my family, where she was not in daycare with other kids, but she was out seeing her Nana and Papa and cousins and having a great old time. So, like I said, I think that sometimes we can look at these things as benefits and challenges, but I kind of think they merge together. So where I have a challenge, on the other side of it is one of the benefits that I get. Challenges, as Barry was talking about don't be a jerk. We do have those issues of, you don't have family locally. And that's where I do say, you do get your academic family. And I get most of that with my being a part of AMS, but also some of my colleagues who've become such good friends. And even I've become friends with somebody at new faculty orientation when I was teaching at Georgia College. I'm sitting next to this woman. She's like, hey, we're both in college business marketing. We found out that we both had children in elementary school. So right then and there, we exchanged numbers and agreed to be each other's emergency contacts at the kids' school, because neither of us had family there. But because of the fact that we all face those challenges, you see that everybody is always willing to help each other out. So for the next couple of years while I was down there, we were the emergency contact. And I actually did have to go pick up one daughter from school because the other daughter of hers had a broken arm and we had to rush off, and it was this big old mess. And you're able to do that. So once again, challenges of not having a family, your colleagues, even if they're not in your department, also face those same challenges. So I feel like we really become almost each other's family in that way to help out. And the last thing I'd like to say, though, about all of these things, I do have a couple of tips of how I've been able to, as a single parent, deal with these challenges and also maintain good relationships with my colleagues and my department chairs. So when you are an academic and you don't have family around, and it may be a temporary, or it could be that you have a spouse or partner who is on the road working, maybe a salesperson, a job where they're gone, and you're single parent at times, even if it's a couple of days out of the week. We have things that we need. So I've not wanted my daughter to be a full-time daycare child ever, or as she got older and too old for daycare. My tip of asking for the big things, my department chairs, I've never gone to them and been like, I need, because everybody needs stuff. Everybody needs things. We all have families, we all have issues. So I've made sure that I went to my department chair about what I call the big things. And for me, the big thing was to be able to drop my daughter off at school and to be able to pick her up, which meant I had a window that I want my classes to be in. So I actually teach Barry that Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, because it allows me, by teaching the 3 days a week, to always have that. I start my first class maybe at 9 o'clock and I'm done by 2:30. So I've had now 3 department chairs since finishing my doctoral program. And of course, Barry always took care of that for me back when I was at Tech. But since then, I have had 3 department chairs at 2 different schools. And because I only ask for the big things, I've never had anybody ever give me any trouble about it. In fact, I'll make sure, okay, we just want to make sure this still works for you with your picking your daughter up, because I ask for the big things. And with that, I also would like to say, being the team player. There are some times that we do need to show up on a Saturday morning, and there's that once a year event, that type of thing. I have worked with colleagues who always use their kids as that, well, I can't do it. For one time a year, I could find someone who would watch my daughter while I did that. So like I said, you want to be collegial, you want to help each other. So limit what you ask for and be that team player. It's served me very well in my academic career. And when I have had some kind of emergency or anything, I have always had someone from my department who was there, or multiple people from my department who was there to help me out. So that is the end of how I have managed as a single parent to go through with academia and the benefits I've had. So I think, Altaf, you're after me.
Thank you very much, Jana. Such an inspiring story. So my name is Altaf Merchant. I'm a professor of marketing and the dean of the Milgard School of Business at University of Washington in Tacoma. So a little bit about me. I did my PhD from Old Dominion University, and I have been an AMS member since my first year of my PhD program. That was in 2005. I've been coming to AMS conferences. I chair the doctoral colloquium track every year in the conference, and I've chaired several other tracks as well. And if some of you may remember that in 2019, the Vancouver conference, I was chairing that conference with in Vancouver as well. So I'm really very closely attached and engaged in the Academy of Marketing Science. In terms of my career, I love research. I'm the associate editor of Journal of Advertising Research and several other journals. But 2 to 3 years ago, my life underwent a slightly different change. The dean at that time asked me to be associate dean. So this is something I never thought about, but I said, hey, I need to do it because he called on me. And I enjoyed it. And then I was interim dean when he moved out, and I'm now the permanent dean here. So whatever I talk today is going to be reflected on 2 lenses, the lens of a faculty and then the lens of a dean. So I've titled this slide really Passion and Inspiration. I think I agree so much with Barry as well as Jana in terms of family. I think that's the starting point. And I call it smell the roses, because I think family life is really important. And this is a picture of my wife and my son, and they've been coming for many of the AMSs. and we are missing not traveling for AMS in the last 2 years because of COVID. But I think it's very important to have a balance between work and the family life. And I say that because there have been several conversations I've had with doctoral students and even junior faculty at the AMS, and many times they say, is it really worth focusing on having a child this year, or is it worth focusing on getting married, or because that will interfere with my research or my career? But I think when everything's said and done, I think it is the relationships we build and the family we cherish. I think that's what's important. And the other thing I think it's also very important is to take time for yourself, because I know that many of our colleagues are single parents, or even if they're not single parents, the demands of parenting are intense. And sometimes you may feel that we are losing ourselves in this whole system. Work on one hand, the demands of family on the other hand, as much as we love our families, right? Don't hesitate to take time for yourself, to refresh yourself. And that's why I have a picture of Mount Rainier here. Whatever your passion is, right? Whatever it takes for you to feel refreshed and resilient, whether it's running or reading or theater or art or whatever it is, take time for yourself, not just your family, so that you are able to balance your own well-being. A little bit about how I have looked at things as a dean, and I think the challenge really has been in the last year to really talk about how to motivate faculty and how to maintain teamwork. Because what happens is that when people are on campus, it's easier for deans to make sure that faculty feel engaged and a sense of belonging. I think with COVID, and Barry's so very right that even after COVID, there may be a tendency of people not to come. So how do we build this culture of connectedness? And I think we've done some things at the Milgard School where we have seen much success. We've had online socials, events. We've given freebies and swag to our faculty and staff and sent it over to their homes. We have shown flexibility in terms of teaching schedules, in terms of when you come back to work. There has been also a COVID relief for tenure. People have got a 1-year relief. We are putting COVID requirements of the fact that there was COVID in people's merit letters so that it is not forgotten. I think there is this feeling of making people feel that they are respected and appreciated, and not just cogs in a wheel. And this is important because when you are together, then you feel less like a cog in the wheel. When you're separated, right, miles away, you tend to feel very alone. And I think that's very important to keep that communication going. And therefore, I have regular town halls with faculty and staff. And it's very important that even the other leaders, the program directors, center directors, keep talking. I think our faculty meetings, we just talk about successes, we talk about accomplishments, to keep the morale high, because otherwise there have been instances of other schools which I'm aware of where because they don't have this sense of larger purpose, people tend to go on to each other because then they feel insecure and uncomfortable with their own positions, and they feel that someone else is getting something better than them. So it's important to keep morale high and to keep working towards a higher purpose, which is really the mission of the school, and that everyone is engaged. I think as a school as such, we've also evolved a lot. There was a time when people did not feel so engaged. They felt that the strategy was made by someone else, by the dean, and then everyone else had to follow. And that's not the way I look at things. I want to engage people, genuinely engage them, listen to them, and in many ways require them to implement that strategy, because we're all stronger together rather than just a few people taking leadership. And as I mentioned, COVID has taken a toll on people's well-being. There has been fatigue, and it's not just me saying, there's research around that. I think there's a Zoom burnout. A few minutes ago, Barry and we were talking, and this was his 5th meeting or 6th meeting on Zoom. There is a Zoom burnout. And we are social beings. We like to connect with people, the body language, the informal conversation, the chit-chatting. I think that's important. So it's important to be resilient. And I think I go back to taking care of yourselves. And I don't mean by that, oh, you need to take care of yourself, do something for yourself. I genuinely feel on an ongoing basis it's important, and more important now than ever before, because we can be so caught up. And in many ways, our academic journey is very lonely, because we do research alone. We teach, we are with people, but we're still alone, because students can't be our friends, and our friends are our academy and our community, but we can't be connected with them all the time. So take time for yourself, build relationships within your department or your school, and try to do research with them as well. That way, you will have better points of connection. And I call it effortful resilience. So what we are doing for our faculty and staff is we are having a resilience workshop where we're going to teach them the fun stuff, such as breathing exercises and distractions and positive thinking and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important to keep your morale high. And the last point I think is very, very close to me. It's about empathy and compassion. I think these are tough times. And even after COVID is over, I don't think it's going to be a switch turn. It's going to take at least another year or more than that for people to get back. And I think it's time for us to show compassion and empathy. For us as faculty towards our students and those who are administrators, if they're on this call, compassion and empathy for your faculty and your staff. I think I believe in having very high standards, but at the same time, I also believe in putting myself in other people's shoes to know that what exactly is happening in their personal lives. And therefore, please be accommodative and understanding to your faculty's needs, whether they have little children, whether they have family issues, visa issues. We have some people who have had visa issues, and how can we, and as a result, when these visa issues were there, we made sure that it would move from a regular track to a fast track, and we got lawyers involved, and just what can we do to make people feel more comfortable and reduce this anxiety and stress with empathy and compassion. So that's all I have. I hope I've tried to cover various aspects. And the last picture I did not explain is this picture on the top right side. These are paintings in my office, and I love these paintings because they're very inspirational. Each painting has its own story. There's one which talks about accomplishment, the one which is about balance, one is about movement, and the other is about competition. And I hope that when my faculty and staff come to my office, they see these paintings and they feel inspired. Because otherwise, sometimes dean's offices can be very boring. I prefer my office to be a little interesting and inspiring to engage diversity of thought. All right, thank you very much. And I think I hand over to Reem.
Thank you, Altaf, and thank you, Hanju, Jana, and Barry as well. I've taken quite a few notes myself. So my name is Reem Shuraiba. I'm assistant professor at Birmingham Southern College in the US. I think everyone who's here I met at AMS, and I only recently met Altaf over Zoom, but I know of him through AMS. I was at that Vancouver conference that you just mentioned, for sure, and made some lifelong friendships through AMS as well. So I have two children. I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. And as you can see, I'm the shortest person in my family right now. That was not always the case. But throughout my academic career, I've always had a family. I had both of my kids before starting my doctoral program. They were a lot younger then. But that has really given me the opportunity to see how their needs have changed over the years and what I need to do differently. Right now, maybe they don't need my physical presence as much, but they definitely need my emotional presence and my support. They need to know that they can count on me for guidance, for advice, and that they're my priority. That goes back to what Barry was saying. My priority as well as my husband's priority, definitely. And these changes and just how their needs are changing has been really important to navigate. One thing that I found really useful throughout this journey is to really fully embrace all of my roles, whether it's my professional role as an academic, my role as a parent, to not be apologetic about any of them in any of the spaces where I'm at. And that certainly does not mean that I should expect any kind of special treatment. It simply means that I can be proud of all of my roles, communicate openly about them. In the academic arena in particular, in our professional arena, I think that having colleagues with various parental status brings in fresh perspectives. I see it as another dimension of diversity that we can all value. Another thing that I've really found useful is to eliminate for myself what I see as artificial boundaries between my academic life, my family life, maybe even my social life, all of these lives that we try to have. I really try hard to look at it as just my life. In particular, trying to confine my academic tasks or my professional tasks to like one corner, or do them all at a specified time of day, like from 8 to 5 or from 8 to 6, or even at a specified venue. I've really found that problematic. I feel that the implication of that is that these tasks are somehow undesirable, like there's something negative about them and you want to push them away into a corner. But that's not the case. I enjoy the work, and I feel blessed to be able to do it. So if doing some of it at home or at night or on a Sunday is what works what works best, then great. Likewise with my tasks as a parent. And I think the last year has shown us all that can really be, it's not only possible, but it can be very productive. That approach for me has been far less stressful than trying to put up artificial boundaries between all of my different lives, so to speak. I do want to clarify that what I'm talking about here does not mean that when I'm doing one activity or the other, I'm not fully present at that moment and at that time. That's not what I'm talking about at all. And that's all I have right now. I will hand it back over to Hanju.
All right, thank you so much to all of the panelists for sharing your beautiful personal stories. Really appreciate it. We have one grand question posted in the Q&A box. Any attendees, please share any question that comes to your mind. We'll do our best to address your questions. So we'll start with this question that came from an anonymous attendee. Says, I have a 9-year-old son and it became hard for me to concentrate when he's home. I like to get involved by teaching him and also have to focus on my research. I was wondering whether you have faced issues such as this and how you navigated through this scenario. Reem has touched on, I guess, a related issue. Does anyone else have anything to add? Maybe Jana?
So I think for all of us who have children at home, regardless of whether it's a 16-year-old, which I have right now, or a 9-year-old, this last year has been incredibly difficult because we're trying to get them to do school, and maybe you have a synchronous class and you're trying to work on research and all of those different things. So hopefully that part of life won't take as hard to get back to normal. As Alta, was talking, it's going to take a while, but I have just had to, with the concentrating when they're at home. Sometimes I just have to say, when I have a deadline, I just have to say, you have to let mom concentrate. And this is when and when I get this done, then I give that undivided attention. We go off to a Six Flags for the day, or we do things like that. And I don't consider it to be bribing at all. I consider it to be saying, you let mom have this time that I have to have, and then I am going to give you undivided time later. And that worked for me. And I mean, since she's been 4, that's the only reason I have publications, or why I got my grades in on time, is because I've just had to do that. And once again, that flexibility that we have really fits with this, because you can take that time and then say, okay, now I'm going to take these days and it's just for my kid. And that's how I've been doing it.
Yeah,
Right?
I didn't have to deal with what's gone on the last year with the kids not being in school and they're at home all day, because I could spend 2 days a week and go home when the kids were at school and write. And so that was an advantage. But it's once they came home and they're working on their homework and they need help, well, that had to be the priority. That's how it had to go. And so you have to become a multitasker, even if you don't like it.
Mhm.
And of course, there's many aspects of the profession that'll drive you to that, where probably for the last 25 years of my career or so, I work on things 5 minutes at a time. It's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And while I will say I don't stay up as late as I used to anymore, but I used to stay up late, and I can remember the first time I wrote a textbook. Joe Hare wanted to write a business research text. We got a contract with Wiley. We got the contract in January, and the book had to be submitted by May, and we did it. I wrote most of that book late at night, and I can remember being so sleepy that I couldn't remember what I'd written the next day, that I was asleep and my fingers were still typing. And that was actually some of the best stuff I ever wrote, when I didn't realize what I was doing. But you do have to take advantage of these little cracks of time in the day, and doing, it sounds crazy, but I'd be in the airport, and if I knew I had 10 minutes time to wait, I would open up the computer and do something in those 10 minutes rather than just waiting and people watching. So you do have to take advantage of those little cracks of time and try to make the best of them.
Yeah, absolutely, Barry. I completely, that resonates with me, because so when I had my son, it was 2002, and that time I was not an academic. I was working in GlaxoSmithKline as a brand manager. And my day started at 7:30 in the morning, and I used to come back at about 8:39 in the night. I used to be traveling all the time, domestically and internationally. And there would be weeks and weeks that my son wouldn't see me, and he was a baby that time. And he wouldn't recognize me. Sometimes I would come back, and that was very hurtful. I think what started working for me, and when I started doing my PhD, my son was still very small. He was just 3 years old, but I was able to spend the day with him, and connect with him. And I completely, what Barry says resonates with me, because I used to work till late. I can't work till so late anymore, but those days I used to be up till 11, 12, working and catching up in between his napping and in between his time when he's done for the night, and tuck him into bed and things like that. But I really think it's trying to do many things at the same time, multitasking. And I mean, sometimes, kids being kids, there are times where you must say, oh my God, why is this kid not able to do it for himself or herself? But I think it's best to, again, empathize and understand that, though we may have all our pressures, the child doesn't, and the child only has one childhood, and to make sure that the childhood is as beautiful as it can be.
One quick thing I want to add, and this is related to what I said about not being apologetic, and it's really hard to do, at least for me, but I discipline myself anyway, is just not to feel guilty in either direction. Because I mean, I do think at the end of the day, if you tell your child, kind of like what Jana said, I need to concentrate on the task at hand right now, but in an hour, this is my undivided attention is going to be focused on you. That's okay. And kids can learn that, and that's fine. So.
That's great. I feel like I have a long way to go and learn a lot from all your experiences. We have another question from Jana Jacobson. She's asking, when is the perfect time to have the second child, and any advice about timing and other consideration to reduce impact on research?
Well, I guess I have 2 children. they're all grown now. That is not the man's decision. Because somebody has a bigger role with that. But I really think, I understand that you want to manage a tenure clock, but today, when we had our kids, there was no such thing as an extra year of tenure clock because you had a baby. And now both the father and mother get an extra year. And so you could have some faculty, and we do see that have a couple of children, and they get a couple of extra years toward their tenure clock. So I think most places would allow some grace for that might be advantageous to pursuing the tenure clock. And I do have the discussion sometimes with faculty, though, about whether or not to take the extra year, even though it's offered. So this year, everybody got an extra year that wanted because of COVID. And that was a discussion that, for some faculty, I would tell them, you shouldn't take it because you're on a good track and there's no reason to delay things. In other faculty, it would be a good idea to take it. And I think the same with the maternity and paternity extensions that I would advise faculty on a case-by-case basis. But there's a lot of considerations that exist these days that didn't exist before. I mean, the idea of a father getting an extra year for having a kid when I first started, that would have been crazy to think about that. So things are a little bit better, and I think you have to consider things like your health situation and the family situation before you do the tenure clock.
Yeah, I think decision to have a second child. So a little bit, I have only one child, so I can't talk with experience, but hindsight vision is 2020. So I think we definitely wanted another child, but we couldn't have one, and it's a different story. But I would say, don't wait for life to happen. Life is what you live it. It's not going to, there will never be a right time, because once you are tenure, then you say, oh, now I want to become a full professor, or now I want to be an endowed chair, or whatever it is. So there will always be a goal which will push you forward. So live life as you're living, right? Everything is part of life. I mean, I had this dilemma when, not when I was a professor, but I underwent this situation when I was in corporate. And that time I was thinking, well, should I wait for a few years? I'm just so close to my promotion to become global brand manager. And this is the advice I got from my dad. Life does not happen. Life happens as you live. So, and therefore, if you want a second child, go for it, try it. If everything works out, then you'll be blessed with another kid. So that's my advice.
And you also have to be aware that I saw there was also a question about the culture of the university, and if it seems to be, if you are a family-oriented person and you're at a place where everybody seems to prioritize their work life ahead of their family life, then it's probably not a good fit for you. And maybe there's a better institution for you to work at where you could see a different culture.
Yeah, I'll add to Barry. For me, when I look for jobs, looking at the composition of faculty members and seeing how many female faculty members there with tenure was important criteria in looking for the fit. So yeah, that for me worked really well. And I happen to be in a department with dominant female presence and it's been great. Yes. So. Anyone else? Or we have really good question that follow up with Altaf's comment about self-care. So with COVID, all of us are stuck home, and he or she was curious with all the demands of the program and the kids. What would be your recommendation in terms of self-care? Does anyone have tips?
I have a tip on this. Okay, so as Barry talked about, and Altaf, you do things late at night and you'll spend time doing those things. And I've had that tendency to be like, okay, as soon as she's asleep, whatever, it's now time to really get some work done, or they're at school. And a few years ago, I started taking a little bit of time whenever she was asleep, when she was younger. It's not so much a factor now, but even now, it's a day where she's at school, where I take a morning and I spend it just doing something for me. And so I don't try to take all of my me time when my family is here. I take a part of that. Okay, she's going to be gone at this time, and this morning is mine. I may sit and have my coffee and read a book that I enjoy. It could be whatever, but I've started taking some of that quiet time when no one is at the house to be my time. And that has really helped me a lot, to not feel guilty, like, but I should be grading. I think we all say that. I should be grading, or I should be doing research. I should be having a little bit of time, a couple of hours on Thursday morning, where I just give myself a facial, have some coffee, do whatever I feel like doing that day. And it's helped me be more productive in that other time.
Yeah, some of the things which I've heard our faculty do, some meditate, some like to run, some like to paint, some like to read, some like to do yoga, and I know it's an option using Zoom and stuff like that. And I think that seems to be helping many people. But I think it's good to take some time and do something which makes you happy, whatever that may be.
And I would say schedule it. I allow my students to book appointments with me. So I use the Microsoft Office suite and I put everything on Outlook. This is very specific advice. And then they can go to bookings, which is part of the Office suite, and book specific appointments with you, and they can see when your schedule is blocked. And it takes a little bit of time to set up, but is a huge time saver if you invest just a couple of hours to set it up once in your life. And if you would schedule self-care time and block it out, you don't even have to specify what you're going to be doing. Kind of like what Jana said, schedule an hour on a Thursday morning and just call it me time. And that really, I think that's part of what makes it happen for me.
For me, I think I strive to secure as much time as possible without my daughter. So I drop her off at the daycare as early as possible and pick her up as late as possible, so that my husband and I can focus on work during that limited period of time. And then when she comes home, I can spend rather quality time without any interrupted interrupted moment. So for me, that's important. And also my husband and I both work from home since COVID, except my teaching days. And we make it priority to walk outside for at least 30 minutes a day and get enough sun. I think that itself has helped us mentally and feel refreshed. Right, so we have one last question asking what has been the biggest challenge each of us have faced. think that's a great question.
I mean, I can start. This is, again, a little bit specific. My biggest challenge was when my son was very young. I had just started the doctoral program and he broke his leg. He broke his femur and could not go to daycare, could not, you know, we had very little flexibility in what we had to do, what we could do. And I think that, and I really just owe it to my husband for really stepping up. I mean, I would do the same for him. It's just that at that time, at that point of time in our careers, in our respective careers, he had a lot more flexibility than I did. And, you know, it's an awful but distant memory right now.
Great.
Well, I mean, that's a question that could be answered a lot of different ways, but in terms of the day-to-day routine, you know, Lori and I always traded off different responsibilities. And I'm from Louisiana. She's from Michigan, so I cooked. And it was my job to get the food ready every night. And that was very stressful, you know, so maybe coming home from the office at 6 o'clock and knowing that everybody was expecting food really fast. And sometimes we would get food out, but most of the time I would be cooking something and preparing something to eat. And that would really probably raise my blood pressure a lot, knowing that I had to get the food on the table. But on the other hand, the return was, what greater love can you show than getting food ready for your family? So while it was a day-to-day challenge, still is a little bit, because I should probably be fixing dinner now. It was just Lori, so she'll be patient. And I did mean to say that if any of you are stealing time from your family, you shouldn't be here anyway. You should be doing it. but the trade-off was, that's a great show of love to have food ready for people.
For me, the challenge has and continues to remain that is to create boundaries between work and life. You know, as dean, I respond to emails, you know, at 11 o'clock in the night, and my wife is not very happy about that. But it's an ongoing work in progress for me. You know, self-care. I try and take time off. I try and go to the gym, and I try to go for walks, go hiking. I try to take time off with my wife, and both of us go for a weekend or go for a short vacation. But it is very effortful. It doesn't just happen. As Reem was saying, you have to block time and make sure that you stick to it. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge for me.
For me, it's about not having family in town and not having a backup person who may be able to pick up my child when there is an emergency. Thankfully, that hasn't happened, but sometimes that just that thought makes me sad. But yeah, hopefully nothing major happens to both of us. So.
My biggest challenge was similar to Hanju's, and being a single parent, so I didn't have the other parent as a backup for anything when my child would get sick. You know, now she's old enough that if she is sick for the day, I can come back, check on her. But when she was younger and you're trying to give an exam that day and she can't go to school and it's just a low-grade fever with a little bit of a cold, what do you do? That was very challenging when those types of things would pop up, because you can't exactly ask somebody to come over and, you know, watch your sick child, and you can't take them to daycare. So I would say that was probably the hardest thing. I'm fortunate enough that that challenge is now passed. So
That's great.
That is hard when you are a parent of small children.
Yeah, Great. I know it's already 7:30. We're a little past 7:30, but we have the last question I want to pay a little bit of attention. So if you don't mind, Kathleen says some faculties are in the sandwich generation, taking care of multiple generation and extended family members. Any additional recommendations to add to your already wonderful suggestions, particularly as it relates to carving out time for research? Anyone?
I mean, I don't have family in town either, but one thing I can offer is if it's possible, make the best of it, because even if the extended family members do need care of their own at some point, at some points of the day, it's likely that they're also able to offer something just by their presence, and that can be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I can add a little bit to that, and I think it's a great question because we've been focusing on our children, but we've got parents too. If we're fortunate enough to still have our parents, and as I've gotten older, you really and having children that are grown now, and I guess I'm the only one with grown children here, really puts that in a different perspective, because I realized that, I am the kid to my mom, and my mom is still living. I'm her kid. And I didn't really realize that so much until now. I've got my own kids, and sometimes I don't hear from them. They text me all the time, but sometimes I'd like to talk to them, but I don't want to bother them. And so I'd say I've tried to, and in fact, if it's about that time, about this time of day, I talk to my mom on the phone every day. And if she calls me right now, I'm leaving this Zoom, and I'm gonna talk to my mom because she's not gonna be here for that long, and I don't think I'm gonna regret any of those hours I spent. Now, do I sometimes have things that I need to do? Yeah, but again, it's a matter of priorities and being able to live with yourself and know you made good decisions. Because one day we're going to be that older person, and I'm getting there pretty fast.
So one thing I have done with the whole, Barry's talking about his mother. I have taken advantage of the conferences when we've been at Disney World or Coronado, different places. And I know Hanju has done that, where we've turned it into a family vacation. So my dad has come and met us wherever we're at. It's just my dad. And he's taken my daughter all over Disney. He is actually grandpa who loves roller coasters and things like that. But the thing is I've been able to take that wonderful experiences, share it with the rest of my family, and then the challenge of how do you go to a conference when you have a child? What do you do with them? You can't leave them at home with the cats. You got to do something. So I've been able to kind of combine the challenge with the fun experience and have that family time with grandpa. So I see a lot of faculty members do similar things like that. And I would highly encourage you to do that. It's great family memories.
Yeah, my parents are not in the US, they're back in India. Now, of course, my father's passed away, but I mean, for me, what I try to do is I make sure I call my mother every few days, even though if I just spend 10 minutes when I'm driving from home to work, I give her a call, and she thoroughly enjoys the conversation. And as she's getting older, she appreciates it, and she misses it if I'm not able to call. So a few times a week, I keep in touch. So I think the larger point here is really that I think it's a multi-generational sense of family. Even though your family may not be with you, I think it's good to keep in touch. And I talk to faculty, and many of our faculty who are from Turkey or from Korea or China, they do similar things where it's not always possible to go there every year or call them here every year. It's at least connecting on Zoom or phone call. I think it goes a long way. We may not, for us, it may be just a 10-minute phone call. I mean, there's so many phone calls and Zooms we have, but for them, it may be the most important phone call that they're receiving in the day.
Beautiful. Thank you to all the panelists and to the participants who shared great questions. I think it was a great time discussing all the possible challenges that we experience in our lifetime and being an academic. So I hope you had a great time joining in for our discussion today, and we really appreciate it, and hopefully you can join us once again when we have next AMS webinar in the very near future. So thank you, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.